If I told you there was something you could do after a meal that takes 15 minutes, costs absolutely nothing, requires no equipment, and may significantly improve the way your body handles blood sugar, would you do it? Most people assume blood sugar control is all about food. Eat less sugar, eat fewer carbohydrates, and eat fewer calories. And while nutrition absolutely plays a huge role, researchers have discovered that what you do after a meal may be almost as important as what you put on your plate. In fact, some of the most fascinating research I've come across suggests that a simple walk after eating may dramatically improve the way your body manages blood sugar. Not running, not interval training, not a grueling workout, just walking. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. I'm Leon Figures, and I'd like to thank you for taking time to watch this video. If you enjoy the content, find it useful, or think it may help somebody else, consider hitting the like button, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who may benefit from it. So can walking improve blood sugar control? Can it reduce blood sugar spikes after meals? And could something as simple as a short walk help reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes? Let's look at the evidence. One of the most interesting studies on this topic was conducted by researchers led by Dr. Loretta Pietro, published in the journal Diabetes Care. What immediately caught my attention about the study was its practicality. Researchers weren't asking participants to completely transform their lives. Instead, they wanted to answer a very simple question. Is it better to perform one longer walk each day or several shorter walks after meals? The participants were older adults who were at risk of impaired glucose tolerance. In simple English, these were people whose bodies were beginning to struggle with blood sugar regulation, the sort of people who may eventually develop type 2 diabetes if nothing changes. The researchers compared 3 different approaches. One involved a single 45-minute walk. Another involved 3 separate 15-minute walks performed after meals. The total amount of exercise was the same, 45 minutes per day. The only difference was timing. That detail turns out to be incredibly important because after we eat, blood sugar naturally rises. Food is broken down into glucose. That glucose enters the bloodstream. The body then releases insulin to help move the glucose into cells where it can be used for energy or stored for later use. For healthy people, this process works remarkably well, but for people developing insulin resistance, things become more complicated. Blood sugar rises higher, it stays elevated longer, the pancreas must work harder, and over many years this can contribute to serious health problems, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, nerve damage, vision problems, the list goes on. That's why researchers pay so much attention to blood sugar control, because blood sugar isn't just about diabetes, it's about long-term health. And this is where the study becomes fascinating. The researchers found that 3 15-minute walks performed after meals produced superior blood sugar control across the day compared with a single 45-minute walk. Think about that for a moment. The participants weren't exercising more, they weren't exercising harder. They were simply walking at a different time, and yet their bodies handled blood sugar more effectively. Why? Because walking creates an immediate demand for energy. Your muscles begin contracting, your legs start working, and those muscles require fuel. One of the easiest sources of fuel available is glucose circulating in the bloodstream. So when you walk after a meal, your muscles effectively start helping clear glucose from the blood, almost like opening an additional exit door for traffic leaving a crowded stadium. The glucose has somewhere useful to go, and that helps reduce the size of the blood sugar spike. What I find particularly encouraging about this study is that the intervention was realistic. 15 minutes. Most people can find 15 minutes. Most people can walk around the block. Most people can walk around a shopping centre. Most people can walk around their neighbourhood. We're not talking about a major lifestyle overhaul. We're talking about a small adjustment, and yet the results were measurable. In fact, the researchers found that the greatest improvements occurred after dinner. That's especially interesting because many people consume their largest meals later in the day. At the same time, many people have become less active in the evening. Dinner, television, sofa, bed. That pattern is incredibly common. The problem is that blood sugar often remains elevated longer when activity levels drop. Walking appears capable of interrupting that process. Instead of sitting still while blood sugar rises, the body is actively using some of that glucose for movement. And that's a powerful concept because it means exercise isn't only about burning calories, sometimes it's about improving what happens to the food you've already eaten. Now, let's take a step back because whenever I discuss a single study, I always remember something important. One study is still one study, no matter how interesting it may be. So let's see if other researchers have found similar results. And they have. A growing body of evidence has examined what happens when people walk after meals. One review of the scientific literature found that accumulated bouts of exercise performed throughout the day often produce better post-meal glucose control than a single continuous exercise session. In simple English, several shorter bouts of movement may sometimes be better than one larger bout when it comes to controlling blood sugar. And again, that's encouraging because it removes another exercise. Many people believe exercise only counts if they can detect a large block of time to it. If they can dedicate a large block of time to it. The research suggests otherwise. Movement matters, regular movement matters, and sometimes smaller doses may be enough to create meaningful benefits. Another study examining post-meal walking found that around 30 minutes brisk walk performed after eating significantly improved the body's blood sugar response across meals with different carbohydrate contents. What's important about that finding is that life isn't perfect. Most of us don't eat identical meals every day. Some meals contain more carbohydrates, some contain fewer, some are healthy, some are less healthy. The researchers found that walking still produced benefits despite those variations. That makes the findings much more applicable to real life because real life doesn't live inside a laboratory. Now let's talk about blood sugar spikes because many people hear that phrase without really understanding what it means. Imagine you eat a large meal, especially one rich in refined carbohydrates, white bread, pastries, sugary drinks, desserts. Blood glucose rises rapidly, insulin increases, the body works hard to restore the balance. For healthy individuals, this process happens efficiently, but over time, repeated large spikes may place increasing demands on the system. The body can become less responsive to insulin. The pancreas may have to work harder. Blood sugar can remain elevated for longer periods, and eventually, problems begin to develop. That process doesn't happen overnight, it develops slowly, often over years, which is why prevention is so important. Many people wait until they have a problem before acting. They wait until blood sugar is elevated. They wait until doctor raises concerns. They wait until medication becomes necessary. But studies like these remind us that small daily habits may influence health long before disease develops. And that's one of the things I love most about walking. It's preventative. It's proactive. It's something we can do before problems arise. On a personal note, discovering this information did not actually benefit me in the way it should. I tended to make the mistake of allowing myself to consume junk and sugary snacks, excusing these bad choices because I'd been walking after consumption. This is not the best way to use this information, but that's how I used it. Truth is, I've always overeaten, and it's a constant battle to make sensible decisions every time I eat. This battle is what led me to research the dangers of unhealthy eating habits to help encourage myself to make better choices. And if sharing this information can encourage someone else to make better choices, then that's what this channel is about. I relay the information, and how do you use it is your responsibility. I am an advocate of radical accountability. Now let's get back to the findings. One thing researchers have repeatedly observed is that walking appears to improve something called insulin sensitivity. Now that sounds complicated, but the concept is straightforward. Insulin is the hormone responsible for helping glucose move from the bloodstream into the cells. When someone is insulin sensitive, small amounts of insulin can do the job effectively. When someone becomes insulin resistant, the body needs more insulin to achieve the same outcome. Think of it like a key and a lock. When the lock works properly, the key opens the door easily. When the lock becomes stiff and damaged, the same key becomes less effective. Insulin resistance is a little like that. The body still produces insulin, but it doesn't work as efficiently. Exercise appears capable of improving that situation. Walking increases glucose uptake by working muscles. It helps clear glucose from circulation, and over time, it appears to improve insulin sensitivity itself. That's important because insulin resistance sits at the center of many modern health problems: type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. These conditions often overlap, they're frequently connected, and that's why blood sugar control matters even when you've never been diagnosed with diabetes. Now, here's something else I find encouraging. Researchers have found that benefits from surprisingly small amounts of movement. We often assume that exercise only works when it's difficult. That mindset appears everywhere. If you're not exhausted, it doesn't count. If you're not sweating, it doesn't count. And if you're not suffering, it doesn't count. The evidence doesn't support that. The evidence suggests that the body responds to movement, particularly movement performed consistently, and that's exactly what walking provides. The beauty of walking is that it can become part of normal life. You don't need special clothing. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need perfect weather. You don't need advanced fitness levels. You simply need to move. The accessibility is one of walking's greatest strength. Now, let's zoom out even further, because blood sugar control isn't just about managing existing diabetes, it's also about preventing future diabetes. One of the most influential diabetes prevention studies ever conducted showed the lifestyle changes dramatically reduced the risk of developing type 2 diabetes in high-risk individuals. Physical activity played a major role. Participants who increased activity and achieved modest weight loss reduced their risk of developing type 2 diabetes by approximately 58%. That is an extraordinary result. Not 5%, not 10%, 58%. Now, obviously, walking wasn't the only factor involved. Nutrition played a role, weight loss played a role, lifestyle change played a role, but physical activity was a major component, and for many participants, walking became one of the primary forms of exercise. Again, we see the same pattern emerging. Not because walking is magical, not because walking is trendy, because walking is sustainable. People can do it, and perhaps more importantly, they can keep doing it. That matters because consistency beats intensity far more often than people realize. A perfect program that lasts 3 weeks is less valuable than a simple program that lasts 3 years. Walking excels because it fits into real life. You can walk before breakfast. You can walk after lunch. You can walk after dinner. You can walk while listening to a podcast. You can walk while taking a phone call. You can walk with family. You can walk with friends. Or you can walk alone. Walking adapts to your life rather than forcing your life to adapt to it. And that flexibility may be one of the reasons researchers continue finding benefits. Now let's bring everything together. The DiPietro study demonstrated that 3 15-minute walks after meals improve blood sugar controls more effectively than a single 45-minute walk. Additional research has shown that post-meal walking improved glucose responses across different body types. Other studies suggest accumulating movements throughout the day can be highly effective in controlling blood sugar, and larger diabetes prevention programs have shown that increasing physical activity can dramatically reduce the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Different research, different studies, different methods, yet all pointing in a remarkably similar direction. Walking appears to be doing far more than simply burning calories. It appears to be helping the body regulate one of its most important biological processes, blood sugar control. And that's why I think walking deserves far more attention than it often receives. People look for complicated solutions, special diets, expensive supplements, advanced training programs. Sometimes the answer is much simpler. Sometimes the answer is putting on a pair of comfortable shoes and going for a walk, especially after a meal. Can walking improve blood sugar control? The evidence suggests yes. Can walking reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes? The evidence suggests yes. Can walking improve insulin sensitivity? The evidence suggests yes. And can something as simple as a 15-minute walk after a meal potentially contribute to better long-term metabolic health? The evidence suggests yes. Walking is free. Walking is accessible, walking is sustainable, and according to a growing body of scientific evidence, walking may be one of the simplest tools available for helping your body manage blood sugar more effectively. Because the goal isn't simply avoiding disease, the goal is helping the body that carries you through life function as well as possible for as long as possible. And walking appears to be one of the most simplest ways to help make that happen. In the next video, we're going to explore another surprising benefit of walking and look at what the research tells us. You get one body, fuel it properly.